Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and the tribal areas. Okay, this is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. And basically within this series of the scheduled and the tribals, we have scheduled these topics for the discussion, like the introduction part, thereafter the scheduled areas in India, an overview of it. Thereafter, what is the criteria for the identification of the scheduled areas? What are the constitutional provisions and the governance systems for them? What are the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas? What is the administration of scheduled areas? What do you mean by the scheduled tribes? What is the general concerns of the tribal community? What is the addressing the challenges? What are the significance of the indigenous communities? What are the problems faced by the tribal groups? What is the conclusion? What is the administration of tribal areas? Okay, so these are the topics that we have scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topics that we have covered so far, so basically we have done with the introduction part. We have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview. The topic on which we have been discussing right now, that is the criteria for identification of scheduled areas. And the topics we are left with, these are the constitutional provisions and governance, concerns related to the scheduled area, administration of scheduled area, scheduled tribes, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems are faced by tribal groups, what is the conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. Basically, in this lecture, we will start from where we have left. But before this, let us revise that basically what we had covered in the previous lecture. In the previous lecture, we had seen the third criteria which we used when we have to identify any area as a scheduled area. This is the viability as an administrative entity. Okay, what should be the viability of this? So the first thing that we covered under it is the administrative creations or administrative considerations, you can say. And what we have seen in it, we had seen the area should be viable as an administrative entity. Okay, and capable of sustaining governance and development activities. Like as I had told you, whenever any area is declared as a scheduled area, okay, so the governance, the administration, what we practice in the normal areas, that is differs what we practice with the scheduled areas. How it is so? Because in the scheduled areas, the government try to give the more autonomy and protection in respect of the normal areas. All right. Even you can say the government interference in the administration of the scheduled areas is almost negligible. I'm not saying that the government will not interfere and all. What I'm saying, it is almost negligible. The government by itself not try to interfere and basically try to give the autonomy in functioning of the governance and the development activities through the administration by the scheduled areas, all right, on their own. Okay, so that's why, because the government is not going to interfere the must, the government try to check out whether the entity that is going to be the scheduled area or administrative entity, that is viable or not. Is it viable to hold the governance that will be provided to it and by its own able to carry out the development activities? If it's so, then the government will give the autonomy. But if not, then the government will take the interference by their own. Thereafter, the second thing that we had seen under this is the infrastructure and the resources. Okay, viability basically assessed on the basis of availability of infrastructure, resources, and the capacity to provide the essential services to the population. Okay, like in order to declare any area as a viable administrative entity. Basically, they have to check the infrastructure. Is this area having the enough infrastructure to work by their own or to carry out the work by their own? Do they have the sufficient resources for carrying out various operations, or does they have the caliber to provide the essential services to the population? Okay, so these things are taken into consideration when the area has to be decided as a viable administrative entity. Thereafter, the economic backwardness. This is what we have discussed in detail. Okay, like the first is the economic consideration. Scheduled areas are often characterized by the economic backwardness. Okay, like I have told you, these are the peoples who were not included in the mainstream since the starting. All right, that's why whatsoever economic development we see in the country, that type of facilities, that type of economic developments are generally not available in the scheduled areas. Okay, that's why it is oftenly regarded that the scheduled areas are mostly the economic backward areas. Okay, if they have the same resources, if they have the same opportunities, if they have the same facilities, then they are already a normal mainstream areas. And if it is so, then why do we have need to make the special provisions for them and all? All right, basically we are trying to make the provisions not because they belong to some caste and some tribes or not. No. Why? Because these are the peoples who were marginalized or neglected from the normal mainstream. That's why we have to take care of them. If they are already indulged in it, we are not required to make any kind of provisions for them. But we are making, so it is quite obvious that these peoples are living in the economic backward areas. Okay, in comparison with their neighboring areas which are already in the normal mainstream. And why it is so, I have already explained you in detail. Thereafter, the development needs. The identification of scheduled areas takes into account the economic challenges that are faced by the tribal population. Okay, it means that if we require to indulge them in the economy, okay, or the normal economic ministry. So first of all, we are required to identify the economic challenges that these people are facing and what are the challenges that are basically hindering them to get indulged in the mainstream. Without identify these challenges, how we will be able to make a policy to resolve them? Okay, you could only solve the problem when you have the identification of the problem. Without even know the problem, you won't be able to solve the problem. That's it. So same thing apply here also. Okay. And the targeted development interventions. Like as I have told you, whenever any area declared as a scheduled area, the first thing is that the administration, the provisions and all will be differs in comparison with the adjoining areas. That's it. Okay. So basically, the one thing that I have told you is that the government try to intervene the less. Why? Because if the government will take over the control, the government is not only responsible for the upliftment and the take caring of schedule in the tribals. The government is responsible for all, right? So when the government will try to interfere, the government basically gives them the balanced approach because the government is also look after the normal mainstreams. And that is not so much efficient when we have to uplift the scheduled tribes and the tribal areas people, right? So that's why the government tries to less intervene and give them the autonomy and certain powers, also certain aid, so that they could do their upliftment in the way they want to be. All right. Thereafter, the targeted development intervention. What do you mean by this? So basically, we can say the government make the interventions, but with the targeted development. With the targeted development, it means that the government makes the development targets, and then to fulfill them, basically the government intervene in the manner. Okay. Without doing this, the government is not going to make any intervention. All right. So these are the things that we have discussed in the detailed form in the previous lecture. Here I have just tried to give you an overview, but in the previous lecture, we have discussed this in detail. So I hope you have revised the previous one in the well enough manner before you have come for this lecture. As many times I have told you, that is for your own benefit. If you are doing this on the regular times, the thing will be on favor. If not, the things will not be in your favor. That's it. All right. So economic backwards and viability as an administrative units. These are the two things that we had seen in the previous lecture. Okay. So if you have revised this lecture, then whatever overview I have provided you, this overview will be so much useful for them. If you haven't revised the previous lecture, then you will just get an overview, not an in-depth explanation. Okay. That's it. So with this note, let's move forward. Thereafter, the next in the criteria for the identification of schedule area. The next criteria is the recommendations of commission. All right. So basically what happened, like when we talk about the government intervention, government aid and all. Okay. So basically the government, as I have told you, is not only responsible for the upliftment of the schedule in the tribal areas, but they also responsible to look after the normal ministries. Okay. So government by itself is not having that much of expertise, that much of efficiency and that much of time. What I'm saying, that much of expertise, that much of efficiency and that much of time, that they by themselves look after the problem identification, will try to search and all right, because they are lacking in these three important areas. Okay. So how the government overcome this lacking and how the government try to make the provisions and all, basically this is done by the commissions, or you can say appointing of the various commissions. All right. The government appoints these commissions and these commissions are required to do the studies of the schedule and the tribal areas and try to make the recommendations on various topics. Okay. Why? Because these commissions having their expertise, these commissions having the efficiency and these commissions also having the time, because they are dedicatedly appointed to look after the schedule and the tribal areas. Okay. They are tasked with the one thing only, not with the various things as the normal government machinery. Okay. So in this, the very famous commission is the Bhuria Commission 2002. Okay. Here you can say 2002, but basically I'm going to ask you a very simple question in it. All right. When was the Bhuria Commission appointed first time? That is going to be the question and it is going to be the fact also. So the question is very simple. When was the Bhuria Commission first appointed? Okay. To answer this, you will have the 30 seconds. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds. All right, the time's up. So basically the Bhuria Commission was appointed for the first time in the year of 1996. When was it appointed? It was appointed in the year of 1996. All right. And 1996, the same year icon, not the same, but the relevant year I am recalling right now. And you should also be recalling it. The year is 1991. So the question that I'm going to ask you regarding this year is that what happened in the year of 1991? Why it is so important in the Indian economy? The question I'm repeating, what happened in the year of 1991? Why this year is much important in the terms of Indian economy? To answer this, you will have the 30 seconds to think and answer. Then I will give you the answer. Your time starts now. All right, the 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20s are remaining. Okay, last 10 seconds. All right, the time's up. The correct answer is in the year of 1991, the new economic policy was implemented in which the government provided the three pillars: the liberalization, the privatization, and the globalization. Okay, that was the thing. So now come to the Bhuria Commission. So Bhuria Commission was first appointed in the 1996 and then the 2002. The Bhuria Commission recommended the criteria for identification of any area as a scheduled area. Like you can say, this is very important. The government is required to make declaration on the area as a scheduled area. Okay. So how they will do it? What should be the criteria? Like you can say, suppose there are 10 areas. Okay. Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, Area 5, Area 6, Area 7, Area 8, Area 9, Area 10. Now I have appointed you and I have told you that you are required to identify any area from these areas that are going to be the scheduled and the tribal areas. Then will you be able to do it? You will say, yes, sir, I will be able to do it. But if I ask you how, then the question becomes tricky. How you will be able to declare any area as in tribal area? How you will make it? So basically, this could be only make if you have certain criteria or certain base. Okay. Then on the basis you will following and you will be seeing if any area basically falls under that criteria or having that basis, then the area would be a scheduled area, right? That is going to be a thing. But when it's come to the government also requires the same thing. Okay. The government also requires the same thing. The government is required to identify any area as a scheduled area, then make the declaration. Okay. But what should be the criteria? What should be the base in order to declare any area as a scheduled area? And for this, basically the government appointed the Bhuria Commission. The Bhuria Commission is responsible to recommend the criteria which the government could follow and identify the areas that are falling under the scheduled categories, and emphasizing the tribal population percentage as a key factor. It means that the criteria that was suggested by the Bhuria Commission was emphasizing the tribal population percentage as a key factor. Like in order to declare any area as a scheduled area, okay, the government should follow the population percentage. If the tribal population percentage is more, then the area should be declared as a scheduled or the tribal area. For example, if I say, the criteria that you have identified while I appointed you to declare any areas in scheduled area. The criteria that you have identified, basically, you said if any area will have the more than 50% population of the tribals, then I will declare that area as a scheduled area. So how many areas you had? You had 10 areas. Okay. So you have seen that out of 10, the 7 areas is having the tribal population less than the 50%. Okay. 20%, 25, 30, 48, 41, 40, whatsoever. But it is less than the 50% that is our more basic criteria. And then you have seen 3 areas out of them having the population more than the 50%. Then that area would become the tribal area because that is falls under the criteria that you are following, right? That's the thing. So this is what the government also doing. Like if any area is having the population percentage as per the criteria that was recommended by the Bhuria Commission and appointed by the government, then The area would be declared as a scheduled area and the tribal area by the government itself. Okay. And thereafter, the next key factor is the expert guidance. But before this, I will ask you a simple question. Okay. The question is, under which article, or you can say, which article of Indian Constitution deals with the ordinance making power of the president? Okay. This is the question. Which article of the Constitution deals with the ordinance making power of the president? To answer this, you will have the 30 seconds and your time will be start now. 30 seconds you guys have to think and answer. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. All right, the last 10 seconds are remaining. Okay, the time's up. So the correct answer is Article 123 of the Indian Constitution. The Article 123 empowers the President to promulgate the ordinance. So basically, what is the significance of this? Let me tell you in short and sweet. So basically, the legislative powers to make the rules and regulations on the national basis that lies with the Parliament of India. Okay, but the Parliament of India having only the 3 sessions, and these 3 sessions we had already covered in the Parliament lecture. So this is going to be the another question, like what are the 3 sessions and what is the time period of these sessions? Okay, to answer this, you will have the 30 seconds again, and your time starts now. Just think about it. I had already explained this to you in the detailed form, so I'm expecting the right answer. 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20s are remaining. Okay, last 10 seconds. The time's up. So the correct answer is budget session, monsoon session, winter session. Budget session from Feb to May, March session from July to September, and winter session from November to December. Okay, so whenever the parliament is in the session, then the parliament makes the various legislature, the rules and regulations. But if you look at the time period, you will find out the parliament is not always in the session. The parliament is not always in the session. So what happens if during this time, when the parliament is not in the session, some emergency arrive in the country that requires the immediate action or immediate formulation of the ordinance? In such a scenarios, basically the president is empowered to make some rules and regulations. All right, to make some rules and regulations through making the ordinances. And when the parliament will come back to the session, okay, the parliament having the power to approve the ordinance that has been made by the president during the parliament when not in the session. And if the parliament does not do this kind of things, then the ordinance that the president had made, that will be dissolved within 6 months from the date of its formation. Okay. Okay, so if we're talking about the questions, then the next question that is also related with this thing, the schedule and tribal areas, and that is already what we had covered. The question is very much simple. The question is, which article of the Indian Constitution deals with the scheduled and the tribal areas? Again, I'm repeating, which article of Constitution deals with the scheduled and tribal areas? 30 seconds you have. Time starts now. We in the starting had covered this thing, so I'm expecting the right answer. 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20s are remaining. Okay, last 10 seconds are remaining. Okay, the time's up. So the correct answer is Article 244. Okay, Article 244 of the Indian Constitution and the Part 10 of the Indian Constitution deals with the schedule and the tribal areas. Got it? So these are the things. Now, if we talk about the expert committee, expert guidance, if we talk about it, so recommendations of such commission provide the expert guidance to the government in identification and declaring new schedule areas based on the objective criteria. Like as I have told you, why the government by their own could not do this kind of things? Because the government do not have that much of expertise, efficiency and time. So these commissions basically help the government to identify the areas that could be declared as an schedule areas. Why? Because these commissions are providing the expert guidance, okay, to declare any area as a new schedule area, and that is totally based on the objective criteria why the government is doing such kind of things. Importance, what is the importance of this criteria if we talk about it? First is the equitable development. What is the meaning of this? This criteria ensures that the areas that having the significant tribal population percentage and also having the economic backwardness, they receive special attention and resource for their development. Why? Because first is they are not in the normal economic mainstream of the nation. Second is they are also having the significant tribal population, and we are committed to uplift the schedule and the tribal areas and let these people in the normal mainstream of the country. So that makes these two factors very, very important for us. Okay. So that's how we could ensure the equitable development. It means that not only the development of those areas which are in the mainstream, but also ensure the development of those areas which are not under the mainstreams and which were lacking. Thereafter, the administrative efficiency. By focusing on compactness and viability. By focusing on compactness and viability, the criteria aim to enhance the administrative efficiency and managing these areas. All right. Thereafter, the empowerment of tribals. Schedule areas and the criteria for the identification are integral part to the empowerment and welfare of tribal communities. Ensure the participation in development process. Okay, so that is the thing. So students, basically in this lecture we have finished the criteria. In the next lecture we will start with the another thing. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture and keep yourself ready for the next lecture. Okay, so with this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say in the end, we say thank you.